Have you ever noticed how time seems to slow down when you're with your grandkids? That moment when they run up to you, arms wide open, shouting, "Grandma!" or "Grandpa." It's like the world stops for just a second. But let me ask you something. Do you ever wonder how to make those moments even more special? How to create a bond that's so strong, so full of love, that your grandkids will carry it with them for the rest of their lives? Well, here's the good news. It's not about being perfect. It's not about keeping up with every trend or spending a fortune on gifts. It's about the little things, the moments that say, "I see you, hear you, you matter to me." And today we're going to talk about 6 simple, heartfelt ways to make sure your grandchildren don't just love you, they adore you. Let's start with the first thing, and this one might surprise you. It's not about what you do for them. It's about how you listen to them. Really listen. Kids today are growing up in a world that's loud, fast, and full of distractions. But when they're with you, you have the power to make them feel like the most important person in the room. Put down the phone, turn off the TV, and let them see your eyes light up when they tell you about their new obsession with dinosaurs, their soccer game, or that video game they've been playing for hours. Ask questions like, "What's the coolest thing about that game?" Or, "What's your favorite dinosaur and why?" Suddenly you're not just grandma or grandpa, you're their confidant, their safe space. And that's a gift they'll never outgrow. Now, the second thing is something we all have in spades: stories. But here's the trick. Don't just tell them your stories. Tie them to theirs. Me explain. My grandson once mentioned he was nervous about starting middle school. So I told him about the time I showed up to my first day of 6th grade with my shirt buttoned wrong, and how I turned it into a joke to make friends laugh. He loved it. It wasn't a lecture. It was a moment where he saw me as a real person who'd been through the same things he's facing. So next time your grandchild shares a worry or a triumph, match it with a tiny, relatable piece of your own life. Not a long-winded tale, just a snippet that says, "I get it. And look, I survived." And here's the third tip. Embrace their world, even the parts that feel a little foreign. Maybe it's TikTok dances, TikTok slang, or those noisy video games you can't quite figure out. You don't have to master it all. Just show curiosity. Ask them to teach you a TikTok move or explain the rules of their favorite game. I'll never forget the time I tried to play Roblox with my granddaughter. I was terrible, but we laughed until our sides hurt, and now she calls me Jay. That's good game for those of us still learning the ropes. By stepping into their world, even clumsily, you're saying, "You matter to me." And that's something they'll hold on to long after the game is over. Now, these first 3 steps are all about presence, connection, and a dash of humility. But there's more to explore. Ways to create traditions, nurture their individuality, and leave a legacy they'll carry in their hearts. So let's keep going. You know, there's something magical about traditions, isn't there? Those little rituals that say, "This is our time. This is our thing." And that brings us to the 4th way to make sure your grandchildren adore you. Create traditions together. Not the kind that require fancy planning or a big budget. Just small, consistent moments that say, "You're special to me." Take my friend Martha. Every Friday without fail, she bakes chocolate chip cookies with her granddaughter Lucy. They use the same chipped mixing bowl Martha's mother gave her. Lucy calls it their magic potion bowl. Now, is it about the cookies? Not really. It's about the flour fights, the smell of vanilla, and the way Lucy knows, absolutely knows, that no matter how chaotic her week at school was, Friday afternoon is sacred. Traditions don't have to be grand. They just have to be yours. Maybe it's a secret handshake when they walk in the door, a silly song you sing while driving them to school, or a night under the stars in your backyard with hot cocoa and old family stories. The key is repetition. Over time, those moments become anchors, a safe harbor they'll return to, even when they're all grown up. Now, let's talk about the 5th secret: nurturing their individuality. Let's face it, grandkids today are under so much pressure. Grades, social media, fitting in. But when they're with you, they should feel like they can breathe, like they don't have to perform or pretend. My grandson Jake went through a phase where he wore a Batman cape everywhere. Grocery store, library, even to the dentist. His parents were mortified. But I leaned in. I called him Commissioner Gordon. For a whole summer. We built a bat cave out of cardboard boxes in my garage. Today he's 14 and too cool for capes, but he still talks about how I got him when no one else did. Here's the thing, every child has a spark, something that makes their eyes light up. Maybe it's soccer, coding, painting, or bugs. Your job isn't to shape that spark. It's to protect it. Questions. Show up. If your granddaughter loves ballet, watch her recital, even if it's just a living room performance. If your grandson collects rocks, start a museum on your windowsill. And please avoid comparing siblings or cousins. Why can't you be more like your sister? Those words sting. Instead, tell me what you love about this. When they feel seen for who they are, not who anyone expects them to be. That's when they'll climb into your lap and whisper their biggest dreams and their deepest fears. I'll never forget the time my granddaughter, Emma, begged me to come to her robotics competition. Me, a woman who still struggles to program her TV remote. But I went. I clapped like she'd won the Nobel Prize, even though her team's robot spent the whole race spinning in circles. On the drive home she said, "Grandma, you're the only one who didn't tell us to try harder next time." You know what she needed? Not a coach, a cheerleader. Someone to say, "I'm proud of you, full stop." Traditions and individuality, they're like the roots and branches of a tree. One grounds them. The other lets them grow wild and free. And when you combine these with the steps we've already talked about, listening, sharing stories, stepping into their world, you're not just building a relationship. You're building a legacy. One where they'll look back and think, my grandparent was my safe place. My biggest fan. My forever friend. There's something so special about looking through old photos, isn't there? Each picture tells a story, a moment frozen in time. And as grandparents, we have the incredible privilege of not just being part of those stories, but helping to write them. That brings us to the sixth and most powerful way to make sure your grandchildren adore you. Teach them something only you can teach. Every grandparent has a treasure trove of skills, stories, and wisdom that's uniquely theirs. And when you share it, you're giving them a piece of yourself they'll carry forever. Maybe it's how to knit a scarf, plant a garden, or tell a joke that makes everyone groan. Maybe it's how to make your famous apple pie or how to fix a leaky faucet. My grandfather taught me how to whistle with a blade of grass. To this day, every time I hear that sound, I think of him. What's your version of that? What's the thing only you can pass down? Doesn't have to be big or flashy. Just has to be yours. And when you share it, you're giving them a piece of yourself they'll carry forever. Now, here's the seventh and final tip. Be their safe place. Life is messy, isn't it? Kids face so much these days. Pressure at school, drama with friends, the constant buzz of social media. But when they're with you, they should feel like they can let their guard down. Like they can be their silliest, saddest, most authentic selves without fear of judgment. My granddaughter once came to me in tears because she'd failed a math test. I didn't lecture her or tell her to try harder. I just hugged her and said, "You know what? Grandma failed her driving test 3 times. And look at me now, I'm a pro." We laughed and then we made a plan together. That's what they need from us. Not perfection but presence. Not solutions but support. Here's the beautiful thing about all of this. It's not about being the perfect grandparent. It's about being the grandparent who shows up, who listens, who laughs, who says, "I'm here and I love you no matter what." When you do that, you're not just building a relationship, you're building a legacy. A legacy of love that will ripple through their lives long after you're gone. So let's recap, listen to them. Share your stories. Step into their world. Create traditions. Nurture their individuality. Teach them something only you can teach. And above all, be their safe place. These aren't just ways to make your grandchildren love you more. They're ways to leave a mark on their hearts that will last a lifetime. And remember, it's the little things, the cookies, the laughs, the quiet moments, that add up to something big. So don't stress about getting it all right. Just show up, be you, and let the love do the rest.